My name's Pete Marshall. I'm Director of Developer Relations at Imply, one of the sponsors today. Hi, Vicky. She's my number one fan. A bit of a background to me. So I started my career in 1998. Is there anybody else who's as old as I am? Just to make sure. Thank you. Excellent. So if I talk about IIS 4, we're all together. Cool. So I started work at the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, which was very nice. Thank you. Cheers. And then I went into Islington. And then I joined the dental regulator in Wimpole Street and saw all of the guys get their teeth done for dancing on ice. That was quite fun. And that period of time was a lot of people getting really excited about having websites. That was really cool. And e-form solutions and paperless offices and a load of nonsense like that. And then in about 2020, I transitioned into data, and that was being part of Associated British Foods, if anybody's familiar with that, big blue chip down the road here, and was looking after their global websites. And that's when I realized that perhaps it would be a good idea if we looked at the logs, especially when two of them got turned into shoe shops. So that was quite fun. Who are Imply? I've been with Imply now for 7 years, I think. Joined them when there were just 30 people, and it was a tiny little office underneath the Westin in one little airport hotel in San Francisco. So it was a bit of a culture shock, especially when they started using words like Kafka, and I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. And the purpose of Imply existing was to do sub-second analytics. Now, I think there'll be some of you here who know Imply and knew Apache Druid. I've got ClickHouse people here. Wave to me. Hello, ClickHouse people. Oh, sorry, I should say, now I've got to think, okay, Presto, Trino, who else can I think of? So that's what Imply was created for, was to do that. And that's when I met Kafka people. Do we know, everybody knows Kafka? Yeah, Kafka, Kinesis, all that kind of stuff. Sub-second analytics. I worked on POCs with Unity, with Swisscom. I actually contributed some code, shock horror, to an Apache repo. That was good fun. And then someone like Dolphin something in a Chinese repo somewhere, I don't know. I'm always too scared of writing Java. If it had been COBOL, hooray, but not Java. So we've existed for about 10 years, and the focus has always been analytics. So this put me in like a weird position, right? Because I've done a little bit of SRE stuff. I've done a bit of Citrix, WinFrame, and MetaFrame. I've done a bit of SQL Server, spent far too long with Microsoft SharePoint. I've done a huge range of different things. I've done websites, but through all of that, I've always been some kind of architect. I said architect. I was an enterprise architect at ABF, and when we started to have massive scale issues and Splunk bills when we were running our cloud infrastructure, we just took a decision that we need to do something about it. I've got to try and tell you a little bit about the Imply product. So this is how it works, right? I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Imply product, but I thought, how do I do that in a way that's actually going to be interesting, hopefully, and a little bit provocative? So I went back to what I used to learn about architecture and what I know about architecture. I'm going to lay out some architectural principles that I think really matter to anything that you're observing, all right? And how you build the observability stacks up. And these aren't things I've made up. These are things that are from TOGAF. Any enterprise architects qualified in TOGAF in the room? Okay, good. I can lie and nobody will know. So there's 4 particular principles that are part of TOGAF that tell me as an enterprise architect how I should design things so they're not crap. And the 4 that I want to call out are data being a shared asset, technological independence, interoperability, and ease of use. So these principles have been around for 25 years. They're older than me. I know I don't look it. They're older than 25 years. And some reason we've realized, I certainly think, that when it comes to observability, certain companies and projects seem to have ignored them and are quite happy ignoring them. So if I take the first one, I'm going to give you a bit of a contrast between what happens in analytics, which some of us are all familiar with in this room, and what we seem to be seeing in observability, right? So what's a good example of this one working well about data being a shared asset? It's Kafka. Presuming everybody knows what Kafka is. We used to call them event hubs. I suppose we could still call them event hubs. But the idea of Kafka is that the data and the applications are completely decoupled from one another. So I can have multiple teams, multiple services, all consuming from the same underlying data source. It's all completely independent. And Kafka doesn't give a crap about whether you call it a metric or a trace or a potato or a piece of observability data. It doesn't care what you call it. It's just giving you the data back. So I can take data from here and I can put it to multiple purposes like ML, alerting. I could shove it into some microservice somewhere. It's completely decoupled. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Tim Berglund's DevRel team and everybody who created Kafka. Right. Now, this is what happens when you have a system which has data as a shared asset. And teams stop duplicating crap everywhere and duplicating pipelines and having to suffer and argue with each other about how data gets transformed and picked up and moved around, right? You end up with something good like Kafka. Other services are available, right? So we can imagine that maybe in observability, logs, metrics, traces, they're all treated exactly the same way. They're all replayable. They're all instantly readable. And they're fanning out to wherever you want to put it in whichever system, and no one cares, right? Collect it from everywhere, shove it anywhere. Then there's the story of the big yellow elephant. Any fans of the big yellow elephant remaining? Put your hands in the air. So we've got Apache Hadoop. This was the start of the data lakes, and it started off being very tightly coupled. And it turned into what we know and love today, with a huge MinIO logo in the middle. We've got S3 MinIO, GCS is your blob storage for the actual storage layer. For the query layer, we've got the awesome things, Trino. We've got this kind of like layer of open table formats in the middle, like Parquet and Iceberg, etc., etc. So we had joined all together, very tightly glued. You have to use everything or we'll kill you. And then on the right-hand side, it's split over 5-10 years so that if I want to go and mix Trino with Iceberg and sit it on top of GCS, I can do that if I like. I haven't got to go and pick just Hadoop. And so many times, I'm going to be careful what I say here, so many times, observability options are you buy us and you get everything. Isn't that great? Actually, in analytics, it didn't work like that. It wasn't great. And we couldn't pick and choose as engineers what we wanted to do. So you end up with lock-in, you end up with stack lock-in and vendor lock-in, and you end up with having to duplicate data all over the bloody place. This is in analytics, let alone in observability. So for all the cloud monitoring we want to do, the huge volumes of data these things generate, it's just really weird to me that observability architectures don't let you, I just want to scale the storage, and I don't have to pay a huge amount of money for it. I just want to scale the power of the query engine, and I don't want to pay a lot of money for it. You can't do that because they say you get the whole box, sir. It's lovely. Here are your knickers and bra. Thank you. What's a good example of ease of use? SQL. Love it or hate it. These 70 different variations there are. So I remember a time when you bought, my God, Oracle. And with Oracle, you got business objects, and you got the RDBMS, and then you got a ton of other things. And they all worked just with each other. So the only way, if you wanted to go and query and get at or do analytics or BI on top of what happened in Oracle, was to buy Oracle, right? So you ended up with huge amounts of fragmentation. That's just like madness. What year are we in? Is it 2025? That we should be thinking that in observability, you have to go and learn a specific language to query their specific data store with their specific UI. That's madness. This is 25 years later, right? Yes, we've got PromQL. Yes, we've got LogQL. Yes, we've got SPL. But really, this is just technical and commercial debt. That's all it is, right? So it is very annoying. You can tell I get annoyed. It's because yesterday I was building something and I had to use an American date format and it really annoyed me. And I had no choice. I couldn't switch to a different UI to go and use a different date format. I had to use the American date format. Madness. Okay, so why are we like that? Why are we still forced to choose these kind of things? Right, I've got to read these quotes carefully. Charity Majors, love charity, said, observability is about understanding systems from the outside in. It's not about the tool you use, it's the questions you're going to ask. Agreed? Yeah? The CNCF said data formats and protocols must be open and interoperable if observability is to serve the entire ecosystem. Agreed. So in other words, we need shared standards, we need flexible integration, and these aren't nice to haves, they're essential for us to build systems that are resilient, that can deal with the 30 trillion lines of logs that are going to come from the 10,000 web services that we build with our 38 different flavors of Kubernetes, right? Observability is about the questions, it's not about the tool, it's about protocols, and it's about things working together. So I believe, quite passionately, that it's time for the observability architecture landscape to just do what analytics did a huge period of time ago when I was a lot younger. Because, and this is based on some recent published articles, and I'm sorry I haven't got a QR code for this, so come and grab us at the stand, we can give you the articles links, or I'll give you the article links. So this is from CEOs, CTOs, and SRE leads on the three things that are causing pain in observability at the moment. So it boils down to tool sprawl, my cake's too expensive, and every time we want to change our alerts or our dashboarding or anything we get off the back end of it, we have to go and change vendors, which is mad. We were at Splunk conference last week in Boston. Anybody been to Boston, Massachusetts? Not Boston, Lincolnshire, by the way. Yeah, I really loved it. Look, it was awesome. I didn't have a lobster roll, though. I'm being told I should have had a lobster roll, but I didn't get one of those. But loved it. So there, that resonated, right? We're talking to people at Splunk conference, and they're saying, yes, data is in silos. Yes, all of our dashboards line up. There was one poor guy who was like, so we try to replicate things that are in Grafana and put them into Splunk, and then we can't work out why the numbers are different. We've no idea why. Searches are really slow. People are having to throw away data that really they want to keep, but they can't because the downstream storage system isn't fast enough and you can't scale it independently of what you've bought from the vendor. And this is all symptomatic of the stuff being stuck together, right? So decoupling, that's the way to fix it. So we've got to break free from that. So with analytics, we've separated ingestion from the storage, from the compute engines, from the UIs. That's already happened. It took a lot of effort and it wasn't easy for some of us. And it's a lot of having to let go of things that you knew that worked really well. And I was racking my brains. And if somebody knows the answer, come and grab me. In Microsoft SQL Server, there was this thing that you could set up the transform jobs that would do ETL for you every day. And I couldn't remember what the bloody hell it was called. So if you remember, come and tell me, because I'm having one of those 48-year-old moments of it really annoying me. It's time to say thank you to some vendors, some of whom are in the room, incidentally, who have actually got it and they understand that we've got to do something about it, right? Including Imply, of course, which is why I'm here. So I've got my Imply t-shirt. Imply. So I'm going to start where all good architects do with some boxes, and I've drawn this slide, and because I'm an architect, no one will ever look at it again, but it looks pretty today, right? Let's start with telemetry collection. So this is a bunch of systems that are all to do with collecting, transporting, and shaping your data. In analytics, I know a lot more about that than I do in observability. I will admit that, but it's anything to do with getting the data out. So in Splunk land, it's all the forwarders, right? I understand that. Then in the middle, we've got anything to do with the storage, about where the stuff goes. So in analytics, for me, that is S3, Athena, and money. S3 and Athena, and whatever else we want to process it with. Then over on the right-hand side, anything to do with getting it out. So nowadays, of course, you have to talk about AI. So AI is this box. This is the future of human intelligence. This is the AI box. ML, anything to do with the UIs, right? Now, we might separate this a bit more, so we've got semantic layers and all the other stuff, but I've just tried to make this really simple, right? So we've got some really cool, easy to understand, I hope, functional families. We've got, therefore, the ability to understand how we might decouple or get these things to work together, and we can apply those architectural principles to it. And I've tried to make it succinct by saying, collect openly, store responsibly, and share seamlessly by Peter Marshall Chocolate. Should be over here somewhere. Telemetry collection, information management, insight generation, right? And if you're in an analytics space, you work with analytics, you know that this is ingestion, storage, and query, right? Matching patterns. So we can now think about this a bit more architecturally. And what's interesting in analytics, and I think it's the same in observability, is it's very rare to find a vendor or a project, Apache Hat, that is good at all three of these things. That's not how it's worked out. We've ended up with one project being really good at the thing in the middle or really good at the thing on the left, right? We haven't got 1,000 of them. We've got 3 or 4 really good ones. But they're all interoperable. They all work together. So let's say thank you to some people. Let's get some logos up on the screen. Hooray! OpenTelemetry. Yes. Okay, other projects are available. I should say that right. I don't want to get in trouble with anybody from Chronosphere. So there are projects and tools that we can now use to decouple that transport layer, right? And what's important is it's making data everyone's asset, right? So you're able to collect the data from the 13 different websites run by each individual BU and have a place where you can all get at that data and transport that data and transform that data, right? OTel, thank you very much, OTel. What you haven't got to do is all run the same bloody observability package. So I'm very lucky to have spoken. Has anybody met Harry Kimple from New Relic? He talks a lot about OpenTelemetry. He's a lovely guy. So if you want to know about OpenTelemetry and you don't, go and listen to him, not me. So people, again, are focusing what they do best, and we're getting like a Kafka, but for observability as a result. So Grafana, New Relic, Splunk, they're all endorsing this interoperability through OTel. It's about making sure data is everybody's assets. It's making sure that we have systems that were more interoperable. It's about people being put first, like humans being put first. And it's about the recognition that whether they like it or not, technological independence is coming. There is going to be a time when we've got to be able to swap out components when we like in this observability architecture. Okay, on the right-hand side, Grafana, Kibana, Superset, I threw in there because I love Superset. But this is really cool as well, right? We have these pluggable UIs that can get to this data, okay? It's still not brilliant, though, for 2 reasons. First of all, like, with some of these tools, you end up having to like add a plugin, and the way that you look at the data is different in one system to in another because you're having to install something, so you haven't got a similar experience. And the other thing, of course, is the lack of these kind of common languages and the ability to not have to use an American date for everything. So what we want to be able to do, market, is pick the UI we like and pick how the data gets collected and transported around. That's what we want to do. There is a guy called Sek who spoke at CNCF this year. His talk is awesome, and he talks a little bit about where we might go with the various different languages that we use, dialects we use to talk to the back-end systems. And I think he'd agree with me when I say, can we please stop creating new ones? That would just be awesome. Just like to stop creating new ones, please. If we all have to use SQL, fine, but just stop creating new ones. Okay, and what's in the middle box? That's interesting. What's that blue logo there, Vicky? Is that Imply? Excellent. Okay, so what have we done? So we are trying to stick to these principles, right? We're trying to keep things that are technologically independent. We're trying to integrate, not replace. We're trying to let you use whatever language you like when you're querying this storage layer. It's just about being able to store more data and to let you build an architecture yourself, right? That's what it is that we've built. And there are 2 things that we decided we should do other than just let you have another place to store the thing, is to try and make it faster and to make it more efficient at storing the things. Because if you can make it more efficient, then it's more cost effective. This is the little UI you get. It's not meant for like generating reports, so don't start comparing it to Grafana. It's not supposed to do that. Just like a little bit of a search UI. And these, I must say, these data points are from DevRel, which is me, not from marketing for a change. So these are real figures. So we do get compression, which is typically about 3 times better than the system we were using. And that applies to structured and unstructured data. So I should say, if you're familiar with anything that Imply or Druid is about, it's typically always been about analytics, right? So anything you can do with a group by is what we've been good at doing. That's what analytics is, right? However, this Lumi is not like that. This is about storing structured and unstructured data better. So we've applied a different compression algorithm to the raw data, which gives us these compression figures. And if you want to know about it, come and ask me, because I find it technically very fascinating. Anyway, so we've got really great compression. That means we can think about doing things like bringing in VPC flow logs and it not exploding the disks. So lot more data, much better compression, and hopefully not going to cost us as much money either. And we don't have to keep dropping data sets after 7 days. The other thing is performance. So we're getting, and these actually is not correct because it's a lot faster than that with certain types of searches. You get like 20, 30 to times search performance. Now, this is not magic, right? Just very clear to say, this is not magic. This is just taking what we've learned over the last 25 years about how to build systems that give you fast performance and applying that to observability. That's all it is. We're using the same kind of techniques, the same kind of compute architectures. It's just being done in a way that makes it all faster. That's all, right? But there is a bit more than that, but I can't tell you what it is. But anyway, so there's always been a discussion about whether you have to give up data upstream because the downstream storage system is too slow. With performance like this, you don't have to do that so much. And again, this is wildcard, like needle in a haystack type searches, as well as stat searches, which I know can be a pain for everybody. Oh, I asked AI to create me a nice meme, which it did. I've no idea who this is up here. But anyway, it's not you. So the point of this as well, okay, great, we've made it faster, we've made it better compression, awesome, thanks very much. However, how do we now do the interoperability? So we got, it wasn't a lucky break actually, it was just really good timing. So Splunk have federated search. If anybody knows about federated search in Splunk, it was meant to connect Splunk clusters together. But then they opened it up to be able to search data that was in S3. And even last week in Boston, they were talking about now how they're going to open it up so you can search Snowflake through it. So we've just hooked into that. So if you're a Splunk user, you can now have this very highly compressed, very performant data layer where Splunk thinks it's an indexer. That's data going in. And on the other side, it thinks it's a search head. So it just searches it using SPL. That's it. You haven't got to replace everything. We're not asking you to change the UI. We're not asking you to change your data format. We're just saying, put it in and get it out. That's it. That's all. And that's what you want to do, right? With the storage layer, you just want to plug it in and out and swap it out. If you want someone else's, just have someone else's. This is all about interoperability. It's not about getting you to deploy new collectors or new agents or rewrite any of your code. Just put it in, right? Okay, so you use Grafana. Okay, cool, that's all right then. So we now have an API to get the stuff out of Grafana from Grafana. However, what we didn't do is write another plugin. What our founders did is just create an API that looks like Loki. Easy. Okay, we'll put the OTel data in, put the Splunk data in. So now I can collect with Splunk and then query it through Grafana. And it's native, right? There's no extra hops in between. I'm not installing anything. I'm just using out-of-box stuff. And what is really cool about the Loki API version is that now I can use any of the features in Grafana that you would use with Loki. So lots of other integrations. We've got JDBC. We've got an MCP server because everyone has an MCP server. We've got S3 pull, so you can do big backfills. And this is the point of decoupling, right? Is that I can just add whatever integrations I like. So lots more data, AI, and AI, and then some AI. And then a bit of AI, and then some ML. That's out of date now, isn't it? Sorry, ML, AI, and connecting to more ecosystems. So this is like the photo slide, if you like. So 3 functional bits of our layer cake for observability: telemetry collection, information management, insight generation. What do we want to do? Collect openly, store responsibly, share seamlessly. Why? Because 25 years ago, we thought it'd be a good idea to have data as a shared asset, to have technological independence, to have things work together really well, and to remember that systems are humans too. So that's why we've built Lumi. That's why we've got a stand here today, so you can come have a look. Kyle's not in the room, is he? There's a guy called Kyle. He's really lovely. Just come up to the stand and go, Kyle! And then he'll go, hi. He's Canadian as well, so they're easily scared. So come and have a look. He'll give you a demo of it, show it you've got some koalas and some bouncy balls. Come and have a look at what we've done. And that's the Imply side of it. But on like the observability side of it, and there's some of us in this room, right? And there's some elastic people here and whatever. We've got to really work together with our employers to try and just get over this bloody vendor lock-in. Let's work together. Let's decouple it because it's going to make it better for everybody. 37 seconds. Thanks. Cheers, everybody.